thought about doing this before you came up here, Jessica. Wouldn't it be nice if we felt a little bit closer? So I didn't want to be obnoxious and come and do it. Anyway, so I have the eulogy, and at first I'd like to say that, you know that expression that a picture's worth 1,000 words? I mean, we sit here, and of course we've got a story for every one of those pictures, and we want to just stop it and tell you about every one of them. But there have been a lot of smiles and a lot of laughs. Nate was the firstborn of 4 children. By the way, I'd like to just say hi to Jerry and Janice and Don, his 3 siblings, and all of our extended family on Facebook and friends. So, born to Esther and Menno Lehman, born in their small home in Marion, Pennsylvania in 1935, Nate would be considered a child of the Great Depression, but his parents moved to Morgansville, just south of Marion, where they opened and ran a successful small grocery and dry goods store for many years. As an 8-year-old, Dad saw a picture of a little girl by the name of Anna Catherine Bear and fell in love with her. But it wasn't until middle school that the feelings became mutual. When her friends teased her about liking some boy, Kathy set them straight, saying, "If you're going to tease me about someone, tease me about Nate Lehman." As a youth, Dad worked in the family store and was the envy of his friends, having free access to all the candy, sodas, and ice cream anyone could ever want. Raised in a very religious Mennonite home, he used to tell us with a twinkle in his eye stories of sneaking off to the movies and being fearful of getting caught. But it was his experiences in his parents' store where he met people from all walks of life that were highly formative for him. It seemed to give him a sense of openness and curiosity about life beyond Morgansville and the Mennonite religion. One day in the family store, his father, my grandfather, was robbed and assaulted. Dad keenly remembered that his father didn't fight back, but later sent groceries to the homes of the ones who had beaten him. Throughout his life, that incident remained a sort of cone for him, a Zen cone, a sort of unresolved source of contemplation and questioning. I remember Dad always teasing Mom about her high school boyfriend, Maynard Kurtz. He teased us kids that our father could have had the name Maynard. Heaven forbid. She later shared that the only thing that came between her and Maynard was the day Nate drove by them, honking his car horn, and Kathy took a little too much delight in that for Maynard. In college, Nate was known for his love of classical music, Beethoven's Fifth, as you heard earlier, his favorite. He built his own stereo equipment to play his favorite Beethoven pieces, booming loudly through the halls of his dormitory. He and Kathy were an item by then, much to the chagrin of Kathy's mother, who used every excuse she could think of why the two shouldn't be married, including the fact that they were third cousins. In order to marry, Nate and Kathy had to wait until she turned 19 so she could marry 20, so she could marry without her parents' consent. They married the next day and moved far enough away from their Mennonite community that there was no looking back for the two of them. However, the ethics and values of peacemaking that is the foundation of Mennonite beliefs stayed with Nate. He served in the alternative service as a conscientious objector during wartime. I remember as a youth the powerful sound of the voice of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. vibrating through our home. My dad was a firm supporter of the civil rights movement and a lifetime advocate for human rights. Dad kept our family active in the outdoors and in fun activities. He couldn't swim, but he insisted we have a motorboat, of which he was the full-time skipper. He enjoyed pulling the rest of us on skis as much as we enjoyed the skiing. We traveled and camped and played games and cards. I remember many a night in a tent somewhere, Dad pushing the rain puddles off of the top of the tent to keep the rainwater from leaking in on us. Nate was eclectic in vocation, a water softener salesman, a TV repairman, even did a stint as an aide at the state psychiatric hospital. But it was his work as the founding director of a halfway house called the Koinos House, from the Greek word koinonia, meaning fellowship, which had the greatest impact on us all. And it was the death of his middle child, Rick, that changed everything for my dad. What was a sort of alternative Christian belief system for him became a deeply spiritual search for the meaning and purpose of such a great loss and unfathomable grief. It was this path that led Nate and Kathy to Unity and ultimately to the study of A Course in Miracles. 45 years later, they are still Unity students and read from A Course in Miracles every day. During those years, Nate and Kathy were motorcyclists and converted a van into a camper for traveling. They also became avid Toastmasters. Nate was so passionate about Toastmasters that he started his own club and brought two defunct groups back to life. In 1987, he was chosen as a speaker for the International Toastmasters Convention in Chicago, where he received a standing ovation for his talk. He won speech contests and twice competed at the international level, winning numerous awards. This passion for public speaking became his midlife career as a seminar leader in the areas of communication skills, leadership, and management, ultimately authoring the book, The Magic of Listening. Not long after giving Nate the title for that book, Nate and Kathy's firstborn son, Jeff, died unexpectedly at the age of 54. Despite so much loss, Nate never lost his sense of humor. I hope that's what we all remember most about him, that he made us laugh. As our family grew to include grandchildren, he was always the life of the party. Sitting around the dining room table, whenever there was a lull in the conversation, we would all turn and look at him to see which way the conversation would go next. I will always remember his hand and his shoulder, both literally and figuratively. So many, many times he was my encourager, my counselor, and my greatest supporter. I would call him for advice and support, and he was always there with wisdom and love. I loved being Nate's daughter. As a child, I remember deciding that I would never get married, that I would live with my parents forever. And one day when I realized I was growing up, I cried all day because I knew it meant one day I would be separated from my parents. And on that day, my dad carried me all day long as I cried. His love is enduring, and my heart will always be full because of it. Thank you. So there's a little introduction for the next song. And, as I was preparing the eulogy, I realized that I could not talk about my dad without talking about my mom. And that's because they have been literally attached at the hip and the heart and the head for 65 plus years. And so we wanted to honor this morning that relationship. And the music is in particular special to my mom and dad because this song was popular when they were first married in 1956. And when they left for their honeymoon and they headed for Florida, they were listening to this song over and over and over again. They would sing it together in the car. And so here it is, True Love.